All right, welcome back to Chapter 3. This is the fourth part of Chapter 3. And so let's go ahead and just jump in and get down to business on this video. It starts at 3.7. So we've done that. 3.6. And there we are, 3.7. So we're going to talk about formatting in our formatting options for output. So when we talk about formatting, we can control how output is displayed for both numeric and string data. We're able to control the size, position, and the number of digits. To do this, we will have to include a header file, and it will be this iomanip header file. So just like with the IO stream, it will be required to include this header file, and by doing that, it's going to include that file completely within our code behind the scenes. Right. So we've already dealt with manipulators in the past, the ENDL. That is a manipulator. So we're going to talk about a couple more manipulators now. And in this one, we are talking about the set W, which prints in a field at least W space, X. That is set W with X in the parentheses, and that is we're going to print in a field at least X spaces wide. Use more spaces if field is not wide enough. Here's an example program, and you'll notice that in this program, even our data, we kind of, as we output our variables, we're doing this kind of nifty thing where we're trying to put them in this column, in this row kind of experience, right? Well, that's all we're going to do in our code down here. But you're going to notice is this set W6 every other space. And by doing that, we're going to set up that when num1 is piped, it's going to be piped through the set W6 and then to the cout. So it's going to have, and it's going to say, hey, I want 6 spaces. And starting from this side, fill in. So the first number is, and I do that so I can see what I wrote, what was written there. Excuse me. So we're going to fill in, and it literally is going to take the 2. It's going to put the 2 first, and then it's going to move it over. And so now you've got 2, 8, and you're going to continue till you have space, 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 2, 8, 9, 7. Now the good thing is we can go ahead and just kind of flip over here real quick, see what all that code does. And as you can see, everything is lined, but it's aligned here on the right side. And that's because the that set W says, hey, give me enough spaces, but fill in from the right. And so what you're not seeing here is there's all these spaces out. There's all these spaces out front. And actually, there's 6 spaces, so I'm getting a little rambunctious here. It really is. Actually, on this one, it's only 2 spaces, and then this has got 4 spaces. Now, if you put a number in that's more than 6 spaces, set W just gets ignored, and your spaces, your number will take precedence. So if you put in an 8-digit number, 4, 3, 8, 2, 6, 1, 7, 2, it'll put the whole number in, and it would mess up your entire grid here. So it is definitely something to think about, but it won't, at least won't mess up the data. Some more manipulators. So we've got fixed, which uses decimal notation for floating point values. Set precision with an X as an input. When used with fixed, print floating point values using X digits after the decimal. Without fixed, print floating point values using X significant digits. Show point always print decimals for floating point values. Now, I want to say, it's easy to read this, but it really is great practice to go into like the online editor and throw some code in real quick and just play with it a little bit uh, to see what does this really mean and what effects do these different items have uh, on numbers and when they're outputting. So here's a little bit of a program that we put in. We've got the setup of variables right there. And we're asking to enter the sales for day one, and we're using CN day one. And remember, they're doubles, so we're expecting that the user is going to type in doubles, and so forth and so on, and then calculate that total. And because we want to look nice and fancy, we're going to even output this data in some kind of, see how we're here, we're outputting this data, and we're trying to make it, especially with this set W, we're trying to make it look more formatted, better looking, and in fact, even when we're outputting our program, when we're developing our program or typing our program, look at how we've written the C outs. So they're nice and neat. Everything is kind of in this line. You can see there's a space right here, and then all the double quotes. And the reason why we did that was we wanted to make sure that our output down here looked nice and report-like. So that's why we would use formatting. One of the reasons. All right. Here is a little bit of a list of string manipulators. Make sure you take a look at this and understand them. Like I said, get your handy-dandy online C++ program out and play with these. Try to make sure you understand what they're doing and understand how they are affected by other things. See if you can use some of these manipulators together. So now we're on to 3.8, working with characters and string objects. When you're using CN with the greater than operator to input strings, that can cause, and it's what needs to be known as CN with strings can cause problems. Okay. The problem that you're going to have is it passes over and ignores any leading white spaces, characters, spaces, tabs, or line breaks. So to work around this problem, you can use a C++ function named getLine. This is a quick little example of how that works. We've got our variable set up. We're doing a couts, and you notice there is no line break here, because down here, again, we want it all to be on the same line. And we're saying getLine CN name. So this is a function that we're calling. We are using the CN as our string, and we are, whatever is entered by the user is being stored in the name variable. So again, let me erase everything just to clearly define that. Name helps to put on the pen. Name is the variable, and then now we're going to say enter the city you live in. And again, we're using cout as the stream provider, but city is now the variable we're putting the data in. And with that, we are doing a nice, neat little output of that. And here you can see that we've inputted strings and then outputted them. Now, if you want to read a single character in, use CN all day long. Here's an example. We've got char ch, and we're saying strike any key to continue. Well, that sounds pretty familiar. You ever seen that on a console app? All the time, right? So strike any key to continue. And then we're going to say CN to a char. The problem is this is going to skip over any of those blanks or tabs or those CRs that we were talking about. So CR, what is a CR? Well, that's a character return. And that means enter. It's going to skip enters. So instead, we're going to use this. So here we are, our lifting little program. This program has paused. Press enter to continue. Now, what's neat about this program is actually it's going to show you multiple neat little ways. So this works. So we've got this char set up, and we're storing whatever they entered in, even though we're just asking for an enter, and that works. But to be honest with you, why do we care about the enter? So then we tried it again. It has paused a second time. Press enter again. So now we're taking the cin get, and we were passing in the variable before as an input, as a parameter. Well, this time we're just taking the output of this and putting it in that variable, which also works. But then again, like I said, at some point we got to realize, do we really care what the user entered? We wanted them to press an enter, and frankly, they could have pressed anything because we're looking for the next character that's input. But we don't care what it is. We're not going to use it. So we literally, in this last third time, we didn't put it in a variable. Why store it if we're not going to use it? And then we did that. See out. Thank you. And we let the operating system know that we are set and ready to go. So working with characters and string objects, you can mix cin and cin get, and the same program can cause input errors that are hard to detect. To skip over unneeded characters that are still in the keyboard buffer, use cin ignore. Now I kind of read those two together, but basically what they're trying to tell you here is, hey, pick one, stick to it. What I would tell you is, because you now know that if you're going to be looking for strings, you can have problems, especially if you're looking for to capture white space or anything like carriage returns. You're going to have problems with that. So with that being said, most people just say, fine, I'm going to use this guy, and always use that particular cint. Yeah. All right. Now, skipping over unneeded characters that are still in the keyboard buffer, one of the things you're going to find out with C++ is that if someone was typing on characters while something's going on, let's say the code goes away and it's in a loop and the user's just typing away for whatever reason, all that input actually gets stored into a keyboard buffer, and it's waiting for cin to come along, and it will feed all that buffer to cin because it's already there. It thinks it should store it. So if you want to make sure you're nice and prepared for whatever cin has to offer, most people do the cin ignore, which skips, cin ignore, which right here, to clear the buffer. But specifically, if you're using it to skip the next 10 characters, or if you're looking for some reason to skip certain characters. Now, so string member functions and operators. So, we've looked a little bit at the string, but these are some additional member functions and operators that we get as part of that string header class that we put at our top of our file. So we have the ability to find the length of a string. This is something that is done all the time, and that is the length. But state is your string, and so that's why we're saying state dot length. We'll learn more a little bit about this and why we did the state dot, but for right now, understand that when you set up a string, whatever the variable name is, if you want to do the length on it, you're going to first have to type in the name and then hit dot, and then this length, and that will, all of this will put the length of that string in size. We can concatenate two strings. Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. In fact, what's neat about this is we've already learned this plus equals operand, so we can do this if we're trying to put strings together. So greeting 1 plus equals name 2. That means take whatever's in greeting 1 and put name 2 on the back of it. There we go. And that is the end of this video. That is a little bit about string manipulation. Again, I do recommend go into your quick little online your online piece and play with it a little bit, and your online compiler, play with it a little bit and see what you can and can't do. It's really the way to get in and learn how to use C++. All right, our next video, we are going to start talking a little bit more about mathematical library functions and some other good stuff.